Vanakkam. Today we begin with the first instrument of Yoga Siddhi as explained by Sri Aurobindo. Śāstra, the inner knowledge. Śāstra is usually translated as scripture, but this word is only a starting point. To understand Śāstra properly, we must look at how our Indian tradition sees knowledge. In our philosophical system, we speak about three types of pramāṇas, the three accepted source of valid knowledge. Pratyaksha, which is direct experience, Anumāna, the reasoning, and Śāstra, the word of reliable testimony or scripture. Śāstra belongs to this third category. It is respected, it is authoritative, but it is definitely not absolute. It gives us knowledge, but it does not give us realization. Scripture can give us the word, the sentence, the script, the concepts, the structure, but it cannot give us the real experience. That experience belongs to Pratyaksha, direct sight, direct experiencing, and direct knowing. This is the first key point that we needed to understand before we go into Sri Aurobindo's thought process. Śāstra, as per Sri Aurobindo, is a guide and not a destination. And Sri Aurobindo takes this understanding even more deeper. He explains that while the Vedas, Upanishads, the Gitas are great outer Śāstras, the real Śāstra for yoga is not outside, it is within, inside of us. He calls it the inner knowledge, the truth already living in the heart. You can read 1,000 books, you can memorize the entire scriptures and repeat, you can study Sanskrit grammar for years, but unless the inner Śāstra begins to speak, you only have the structure and not the meaning of the truth. The outer Śāstra can show us direction. The inner Śāstra reveals the truth. Let us understand this a bit more clearly. External scriptures can give us the word, the method, the principles, the instructions, and the map. But only inner experience gives us the true meaning. It is only through this inner experience the realization comes. You can read the word peace 1,000 times, but when your inner being becomes still for one moment, you truly understand what peace means. You can read about surrender until something deep inside you softens and you let go. The word remains. Until that, the word of surrender remains a concept. You can study aspiration, but until a flame rises in your heart, it is only a theory. So, what is the Śāstra? This is why Sri Aurobindo insists on the awakening of the inner Śāstra, the quiet, luminous guidance that raises from within when the mind becomes still. How does the inner Śāstra speak? That is a very good question to ponder. It does not speak in sentence. It does not argue. It does not shout. It reveals. Your inner Śāstra reveals. It shows itself through a quiet certainty, a sense of correctness, a feeling that something is aligned or misaligned. Sometimes this inner Śāstra comes as a subtle intuition, sometimes a gentle clarity, sometimes a natural knowing that says, this is right. The inner Śāstra is the compass of the soul. It knows the next step long before the mind and the outer mind understands anything. The question becomes, how do we make this inner Śāstra visible to us? It happens when the mind becomes quiet, not empty, my friends, but quiet. When emotions settle and stop overflowing and overreacting. When sincerity is strong. When we stop pretending. When we begin to observe ourselves honestly. When we are willing to see ourselves exactly as we are. In such moments, even briefly, the inner knowledge begins to shine. And this is why Śāstra is the first instrument of Yoga Siddhi. Without the inner knowledge, our effort becomes mechanical, our practice becomes blind, our progress becomes accidental. But when we follow the inner truth, everything begins to align. our will aligns, our choice aligns, our behavior aligns, and our practice aligns. And this gives a clear sense of direction, and our aspiration becomes focused and concentrated. Śāstra is the headlamp of the soul. It lights the path from within. Now, the Vedas called Shruti, that which is heard. They were not written first, they were heard first from within. The rishis listened inwardly. That listening became Veda, the first hand experience. When we read the Veda externally, we receive the syntax. When we listen to the Vedas inwardly, we receive the meaning. This is the movement from information to knowledge. Knowledge becomes experience, and experience becomes realization. And to summarize, Sri Aurobindo teaches us that the real Śāstra is the inner knowledge, the quiet truth in the heart that guides our evolution. Yoga truly begins when we start listening to this inner scripture and allow it to shape our life. If this talk resonated with you, you're welcome to stay connected here. I'll be sharing the next 3 instruments of Yoga Siddhi, Utsaha, Guru and Kala in this series, and also have discussions on Sri Aurobindo and yoga as a lifestyle. You can subscribe and join me for the next video. And I take this moment to thank all of you for joining until the end. Nandri, Vanakkam.